All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about the one thing that can absolutely make or break your app's user experience, the main thread. Seriously, understanding this is the key to building something that people love to use instead of something they just uninstall in frustration.
Yes, this message. If you're a developer, you've probably seen this pop up in your logs, and it's always a gut-sinking feeling, right? It's basically your phone screaming at you that your app just can't keep up. So what do we call this? Well, there's actually a name for it: jank. That's the technical term for that awful stuttering, freezing, or choppy animation you see when an app is struggling. It's the visible proof that your app is dropping frames and, well, failing the user. And let's be perfectly clear here. Jank is the absolute #1 enemy of a good user experience. It just makes your app feel cheap, slow, and broken. So how do we fight this enemy? Well, first, we've got to understand the battlefield. To really get to the bottom of this, we need to introduce the star of our show, the main thread. You can think of it as your app's MVP, its most valuable player. It handles pretty much everything the user actually sees and interacts with. So what is this thing, really? The main thread, which you'll also hear called the UI thread, is the one and only thread in charge of every single user interaction. We're talking every tap, every swipe, and every single pixel that gets drawn on the screen. It is a one-person show doing everything. And look at this job list. It's insane. It's handling your taps, drawing the user interface, running all the smooth animations, and even managing the app's lifecycle. It's like having one chef in a packed restaurant who also has to take the orders, cook every meal, wash the dishes, and serve all the tables. It's a recipe for disaster if they get overwhelmed. Now, get this. Here's the crazy deadline that Chef is working under. To give you that buttery, smooth 60 frames per second experience that users expect, the main thread has just 16.6 milliseconds to do all of that work for a single frame. If it takes even a fraction of a second longer, boom, a frame gets dropped. You get jank. Oh, but it gets so much worse. If that main thread gets completely stuck, totally blocked for more than 5 seconds, the operating system itself steps in. It just assumes your app has died and throws up that dreaded application not responding dialog. For the user, it's game over. So what is this cardinal sin? What are these terrible things that can bring our all-important main thread to a grinding halt? Let's go look at the crime scene and find the usual suspects. Now, here's the crucial thing to understand. Doing these things, making network requests, querying a database, reading a big file, they aren't the problem. Your app has to do this stuff. The crime isn't doing them. The crime is doing them in the wrong place. Any of these can easily take way longer than 16 milliseconds, which means they can never, ever run on the main thread. Okay, so if our MVP, the main thread, can't be bogged down with all this heavy lifting, then what's the solution? Well, it's time to bring in some backup. We need to divide up the labor. And the solution, at least in theory, is pretty simple. You never, ever do slow work on the main thread. Instead, you offload it. You hand it off to what we call a worker thread. You let someone else do the heavy lifting in the background, so the main thread can stay free to do its real job, keeping that UI snappy and responsive. And this table right here, it says it all. Imagine a 10-second file download. If you do that on the main thread, your app is totally frozen for 10 seconds. The user is tapping, nothing's happening, and they get an ANR dialog. Terrible. But if you do it on a worker thread, the UI stays perfectly fluid. The user can scroll, tap, do whatever, while the download happens quietly in the background. The experience goes from, I'm uninstalling this, to, wow, this app is fast. So, problem solved, right? Just use worker threads for everything. Well, not so fast. Because as soon as you introduce worker threads, you also introduce a new, absolutely critical rule that you just can't break. And here's the big twist. For safety and stability, UI toolkits are not thread safe. What that means is a worker thread is strictly forbidden from directly touching or changing anything on the screen. Only the main thread, the one that created the UI in the first place, is allowed to modify it. If you try to break this rule, your app will just crash hard. So how does that worker thread get its results back to the user interface? Let's look at 2 ways. There's synchronize, which is a blocking call. The worker thread literally stops everything it's doing and waits for the main thread to be free. This can bring back the exact same stuttering we were trying to avoid. Then there's queue. This is non-blocking. It's like sending a text message instead of making a phone call.
The worker thread just fires off the update and immediately gets back to its business. It keeps everything fluid. And you don't have to take my word for it. This comment from a developer on Stack Overflow it nails it perfectly. Using synchronized means you may as well not be using threads. It completely defeats the entire purpose of what you're trying to do. It's a trap. So you see, building a responsive app isn't about one little trick or a quick fix. It's a whole philosophy. It's about designing your application's architecture from the ground up with this idea of fluidity in mind. Okay, so that's the mindset, but how do you actually enforce it? How do you make sure these mistakes don't accidentally creep into your code while you're building? Well, thankfully, there's a fantastic tool for exactly that. It's called Strict Mode. Think of it as your own personal performance coach. It's a tool you can turn on during development, and it will watch your app like a hawk. The second you accidentally do something slow on the main thread, like a disk read or network call, it will scream at you in the logs. It's an incredible way to build good habits. When you boil it all down, it comes back to these two fundamental laws. These are the two commandments of building a responsive app. Rule number 1, do not block the UI thread. Rule number 2, do not access the UI toolkit from outside the UI thread. That's it. Every decision you make should honor these two rules. And so that leaves us with one final, pretty important question you should be asking yourself. When you look at your own apps, at your own code, is your architecture built for fluidity from the very beginning? Or is it setting you up for a constant battle with jank, ANRs, and ultimately, failure? The choice really is yours.